Good afternoon, everybody. First, a quick show of hands. How many people here are from the FE sector? Right, so we've got a few. How many of you use Moodle? Right. Is everybody, I take it everybody's aware of the sort of structure of unitised qualifications like BTECs, City and Guilds? We've got units and then performance criterion, and they're very, very difficult to track. And we started using Moodle in 2009. We moved across from WebCT. One of the things that really attracted us to Moodle was the fact it was open source. So that gave us the opportunity to customise Moodle and make it very much the tool that we wanted it to be. After a while, we got carried away. Now, one of the things that was a concern to me was the way that we were tracking these qualifications within the college. In most cases, it was via a spreadsheet in a shared drive that had been carefully hand-tailored by particular members of staff. Problem with that was there was no clear standard in use across the college, wasn't accessible to the student, and you couldn't really sort of report on it in any way. So we thought, we'll build a tracking tool for our teaching staff, and we'll build it in Moodle. And it should be fairly easy, and we'll be finished by Christmas. 3 and a bit years later, I think we're just about there. So the background is we were on Moodle 1.9, we'd heavily customised it. We built the first version of the grade tracker. It was working very well for BTEC qualifications. Other colleges were coming in, sort of seeing the work that we were doing, and also seeing our work presented at things like the 157 group, and also the Eastern Region RSC. And they were very, very keen to have what we'd developed in Moodle. And that sort of led to the project that was supported by Jisc that I'm going to show you the output from today. So without any further ado, I'll sort of jump straight in and start demonstrating the grade tracker. It's a Moodle block, fully integrated with Moodle. You can sit on the front page, or you can drop it in at the course level. It allows you to do a variety of things. You can set up and configure a whole range of qualifications, all BTEC qualifications, City and Guild, and A and AS levels. There's also a bespoke tool that lets you configure any other unitised qualification. However, for the bespoke tool, it won't predict grades for you in the same way it does for BTEC. So the first thing I'm going to show you is my trackers. Because I'm an admin, I get to see everything, but for teachers, this will only show the qualifications that are relevant to them. So as I scroll down, you can see just how embedded it is across the college. And you can see the sort of full range of sort of qualifications that we have. So going down through also the BTECs. And what I'll do is I'll jump into the extended diploma in animal management. And the first thing that gives me is an overview of how all the students in that course are performing. And what we're seeing here is the target grade, and that's generated from the qualifications and entry using the ALPS calculations. Aspirational grades, by default, are set at the target grade +1 and are amended through dialogue between the teacher and the student. The qualification award shows what they are predicted to achieve based on the units they've so far completed in the qualification. Value-added scores are also sort of shown, and you can see at a glance the number of units that have been awarded, and of those units, how many are at pass level, how many are merits, and how many are at distinctions. So for any student, as we look across, if we want to explore what they've been doing in more depth, we can click on View Grid. And this will take you into the student's tracking grid. So as you can see, we've sort of standardised in sort of widescreen format at the college, so it tends to have sort of more of the grid actually on the screen. So from there, you can scroll backwards and forwards, see all the distinction units, the merit units, and you can see what the students achieved, what they haven't achieved. So the students like this. They find it a very, very clear, good sort of graphical indication of their progress in the course. What we can also do, from any of these, we can click into the unit grid and see all of the students and how they're performing against that particular unit. And there we have it. Now, in terms of marking, the way that the teaching staff usually do is working in the unit view. So if I go into Edit Simple, this takes a moment, and we've got a simple checkbox for all the different criteria as to whether they've been achieved or not. But most of our teaching staff tend to work using the advanced option. And the advanced option gives a much richer range of sort of options for how you assess what the student's done. So you can flag work as being referred, achieved, if it's sort of come in late, if it's partially achieved, work not submitted. One of the reasons we've got so many in there is the different teaching departments across the college had different features within their tracking grids. And that we knew if we were going to have a successful cross-institutional tool, it had to meet the needs of every single sort of teaching group that we had within the college. Now, once all the sort of pass criteria are accomplished, it will automatically flag the unit award as pass. If you then add on the merits, it will automatically flag that as a merit. Now, for my sins, my better half decided to take up a career in teaching. And last September, she became a full-time lecturer in the college, teaching on these very, very programs. So I had the opportunity to look very, very closely at how teachers were actually using the tracking grids. And what we found was that they tended to sort of take the scripts, whether submitted online or not, and they liked to work offline with them and then update the tracking grids later. So again, there's an element of rework taking place. So we thought, if they're going to produce tracking grids, let's do it for them. So we then produced a tool that allows them to export as an Excel spreadsheet the tracking grid for the unit. And it's got two tabs in it, one for adding comments behind the criterion, the other one for setting the value as to whether it's achieved or not. And then once they've done that, they use the import data sheet function, and that automatically bulk updates everything that they've done. Teaching staff found that was a huge time saver. So it's a very, very popular feature. Just a matter of interest, how many people who are in FE colleges, what sort of tools do you use for tracking sort of BTEC qualifications at the moment?
We use Writer,
Yep.
which is looks like equivalent to supply vistas, but this is possibly easier to use, isn't it? Can I just ask a quick question on that?
Yep, certainly.
Do any of your staff get work submitted online?
Yes, a lot of them.
And do they grade as they're doing that, and does it populate bits as they do it?
It does. What we've done is we've also set this up. This is one of the more recent developments. Online assessments, we've added a feature that lets you sort of map that assessment to the particular units and criterion that are evidenced by it. So as soon as the work is submitted, it automatically updates the grid to show that that work is submitted. And we're also setting up another downloadable spreadsheet, which is purely the assignment view. One of the great advantages of this over other systems is that it integrates very, very cleanly with the tool for online submissions. And we've also extended that to any other sort of gradable activity within Moodle. So if you're setting up quizzes and that evidence is achievement of a criterion, you can do that automatically within the system. Now, what we can also do with this is you can also set up sort of custom sort of programs of study for students. So if you've got a mix of compulsory units and optional units, using sort of checkboxes, you can sort of flag up which units students are doing. And there we go, and here's the tool that you use for that. And one of the nice things that you've got as well is there's some very, very quick tools as well. So if you set up one particular student with the units, you can use that as a template and flood fill all the others. So they all start off with the same program of study and then tailor accordingly. Some of the units that we teach have huge numbers of students on them, up to about 100 or so. So trying to do that individually without some kind of, sort of bulk fill tool would be quite an onerous task. One of the other things that we had to do is be very, very sensitive to the requirements of the different types of qualification that we're dealing with. So if I just give you a look at the AAS level trackers. Let's pick AS level psychology. E2 psychology, which is always a subject close to my heart because I started life as a psychologist. As you can see here, it's slightly different. It shows the target grade, qualification award, more detail in the value added. And if we pick a student and go into their tracking grid, it's showing all the subjects that they're doing, but it's also showing the weighted ALPS coefficients. So you can see how your sort of student is doing against, say, the top 10th percentile of sort of colleges from the previous year. And again, these are using ALPS temperatures. So red is good, blue is poor. I find that very counterintuitive, but people who work with ALPS, they swear by it. And again, as you can see, we've got very, very detailed information as to how the student is progressing on their course for all of their A levels.
And does the student get that as well?
Oh yes, students see this.
And is it, do they get that as a data file they could input to their e-portfolio, for example?
It's all exportable. I'll come back to that. If we have a look under the options here, yeah, so there you've got the opportunity to sort of export the data sheet there, and that would bring out all of the criterion that they've achieved, plus any comments that are put against it. We're actually looking more at sort of reporting and how we can produce a more sort of fully finished report for the student. I'll very, very quickly show you the City and Guilds tracker, which again is sort of quite different. As well, that's sort of finding its way back. Just to give you a flavour of how this is being used at the moment, we have a project website, whittlegrades.bedford.ac.uk. And one of the good things about that is we can track which colleges have accessed the site to download the module and are currently working with it. And the current release, which is version 7, that's been downloaded by about sort of 30 or so colleges and institutions. So you can see we've got Boston, College of West Anglia, City College Plymouth, Swindon, Berkshire College of Agriculture, Rotherham College, Isle of Wight College, Wiltshire, Sussex Downs College. It's really sort of taken off over the past few months in terms of interest. Just take that back to home. And I was looking for a City and Guilds tracker. One of the big advantages for for colleges that do adopt the grade tracker is it comes pre-populated with every qualification unit, and most importantly, the performance criterion that we've transcribed. And I think for people that are sort of working with third-party tools, that's where the hard work comes in, is entering the specific performance criterion. There is no data source that we've found that will let you do that automatically. So we've taken quite a lot of the configuration pain out for the colleges that do use the tool. There we go. Again, with the City and Guilds, it's slightly different. And with this, we've actually sort of gone ahead. You've got the sort of completion bar there. And it goes so far as to supporting all the IVing as well. So you can actually track where the units are in terms of internal verification and external verification. Right, let's just go back.
Have you had any feedback yet, Roy, from the students as to how they are finding it and how they are using it to help their performance?
They love it. They're very, very competitive, and they badger the teaching staff remorselessly. As soon as they hand work in, they're constantly on the teacher's case to find out, have you updated the grade tracker yet? Is it on grade tracker? When is it going to be on grade tracker?
Is it saving staff time?
Yes, it is now.
They've got used to it.
And I think once we brought in sort of the offline tracking grids, we had a it was a fairly good system when we had Moodle 1.9. As soon as we moved over to Moodle 2, we started redeveloping it, we also added in quite a lot of new features as well, and with a bit of a performance dip. But then, round about sort of version 4 onwards, we sort of lifted ourselves out of that, and now it's a much sort of faster and slicker system. And particularly the offline marking option, the teachers find that is a really, really quick way to work.
Any issues about data protection?
None that you wouldn't have with any other tracking system equivalent to this. Oh yes, that was what I was going to show you. I'm going to show you one other sort of feature on the tracking grid. And I'll just show you a couple of the other tools that we've built round about to try and make a more comprehensive learning ecosystem for the students. What I didn't show you, because I didn't scroll down to the bottom of the block, and I picked a poor student to demonstrate this with, is you get a full sort of summary of the student's progress down here, as well as the projected UCAS points that they're working to. So if they do have an aspiration to progress onto higher education, they get very, very good information about what they need to do, where they're at, and how well they're progressing towards that goal. Now, that's one aspect of the developments that we've been undertaking at the college. The other thing that we really wanted to do was try and build a much more sort of global personal learning plan for the students and make that available within Moodle as well. And that resulted in the development of the student's personal learning plan. I'll just take a moment to load. And again, this fully modular architecture. We've got different blocks. We've got very good attendance information. This is drawn from the MIS system and it's sort of an overnight update. And what it does, it identifies trends. So you can see attendance year to date, over the past 28 days, and also within the past 7 days. As you can see, you can get down to a very, very granular level with it. And the students' timetables are available. They're drawn from the student data system again. This will probably come up empty because the students have just finished. I'll just see if I can sort of backtrack and see if I can find an earlier. There we go. So you can see it again, this is all available to the students. The students really like having all the information available in one place. And when the students meet with the tutors, this is the tool that they sit and work on together. So we use this for all the setting and assessment of SMART targets. As you can see here, the student has achieved all 3 of the targets that were set for them during tutorials. And again, we use this as a tool for sort of tracking tutorials as well. So for each tutorial, we've got summary of the targets that were set. There's an opportunity for the student to add comments, comments from the tutor, targets that were set in the tutorial. Now, as this is an exit tutorial, that's not really appropriate. And also a summary of what happened with the previous targets. Moving on, comments. Opportunity for any member of the teaching team to add something more discursive about the student's performance. And again, we use some iconography there to indicate if it's a positive comment or something that the student may have to work on. We got a bit of sort of very positive feedback about an assignment. Moving on down, this is how the student would typically access the grade tracker. The grade tracker block there will show all the qualifications that are tracked on. Clicking on that will open their tracking grid for them. File attachments can be shared. We also sort of pull in all their initial assessment information and make that available through the BKSB block. We have links to all the registers because teaching staff didn't want to then have to go off and access a different system to look at registered information. So we brought that in and made it available. Students' prior learning, their average GCSE scores, they're available in that block. Aspirational target grades. One of the jobs I was tasked with at the end of last year was ensuring that for all those students, very, very quickly, we'd completed all the initial assessments and we'd harvested all their qualifications and entry. So we could set target grades. This proved to be a very, very timely piece of work, given that we had Ofsted in March. And what I found was that ALPS was fine, but there's a lot of students that we had that were progressing from BTEC qualifications, which you can't use to calculate target grades, or they were on qualifications for which, ALPS generated target grades weren't really relevant. And again, there was the aspect of stretch and challenge. So that was why I felt it was good to introduce the aspirational targets to make sure that every student had a target that they were aware of through their PLP, and that also incorporated an element of stretch and challenge for them.
Did you get an Ofsted inspector who understood technology, who looked at this and was able to give you positive feedback?
We were fortunate that we did have an Ofsted inspector who was very, very positive about technology. We had to be sort of quite forceful in sort of making sure that he did have a presentation on how we were using Moodle. As the dialogue sort of went with, initially we'd sort of scheduled an hour presentation on Moodle for them. And they said, we don't know that, want that, we know about Moodle. It's where you keep your teaching resources. So that's not how we use it at Bedford College. We use it for the full management of all aspects of teaching and learning. So reluctantly, they agreed to a half-hour introduction from one of the technical staff, and that spun out into about an hour exploration of all the stuff that we'd developed. He was very, very impressed. He went so far as to describe it as an extraordinarily good use of public money, and went on to say that he felt this was something that all colleges should be able to use. So course reports, there's sort of tools in here so that different members of the teaching team can contribute termly their subject reports, which can be aggregated into a termly report. The assessment calendar summarises and shows in calendar form all of the assignments that the students have been set within Moodle. So you can see if there's clashes, overlaps, when work's due. We also have additional support records. And one of the latest things that we've added is the parent portal. And this is for guardians and also for employers. If they know a student ID number and a date of birth, they can apply to have access to a selected subset of the PLP information. Right. From having made that application, that appears in here, and it's up to the student to approve that application. But the tutor also has oversight over this. So if the student declines the request to have access, the tutor can explore those issues with them. So that's the PLP. The other aspect of the system that we've built is the reporting framework, which I could go into, but we've only got 5 minutes left. But in short, that allows people to sort of configure email alerts against any aspect of the system, and also sort of produce reports that you can drill down from whole college level, centre level, programme area level, right down to individual students. And that's the tool that we used when we were putting all the students onto their functional skills levels, the functional skills courses. So I was producing reports out of this. It showed GCSE results for English and Maths, initial assessment results, their average score, and sort of previous functional skills achievements if they had them.